Welcome to the deep dive with myself, Pamela Walsh, and the very lovely.
Oh, thank you. I needed that today. Sian Horn. Thank you very much, Pam.
How are you? Tired?
I'm tired. I'm not well. I'm moany, but I will get over it. These things happen. I don't know what I've got. Just feel like I've been run over by a bus, but however, too busy to be sick. So when I'm up and I'm eventing, and when I'm not eventing, I'm in bed.
But you had a crazy
I did
International
indeed.
Women's Day, crazy week. You really did. So
It's still going. I
yeah,
haven't stopped. So
International Women's Day,
Wednesday morning we had the club breakfast in Cork.
which
Wednesday
was fab.
evening, yeah, it was great, wasn't it?
Yeah, really good, nice
They're
day.
always great though. They're always great. And then I went actually straight from there to UCC, sat on a panel for a brilliant event actually, all about Big Sisters. So they've put together a group. So there was 4 of us on panel. Her Sport, Evelyn Monaghan from the Kilkenny Group, CEO, and I'm going to forget the last lady, but she was brilliant, accountancy. A really good event. I wasn't supposed to sit on panel actually, but someone didn't turn up. So I just jumped in and loved it. Left there, absolute bedlam. Was supposed to be at an event at 6 o'clock down up in Dublin. Missed our train from Cork, and the lovely Evelyn from Kilkenny shop, because the event was at her, she dropped us to Mallow. Me and the lovely Olivia managed to jump on the train, and she missed it. So we got up to Dublin, went to that event, lovely event for International Women's Day and Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Then stayed up in Dublin that night. Then we had our club breakfast on Thursday morning up in Dublin, and managed to actually get our train 3 hours early to come home, which was fantastic. That's always a good. That again was a gorgeous event in iconic offices. The Masonry, stunning venue, absolutely stunning. So yeah, that was brilliant. And then Friday was obviously International Women's Day, and I sat on a panel for the TSB Bank at Hayfield Manor that day. Beautiful, obviously Hayfield Manor never disappoints. And then Saturday I was working. Sunday I did my Sunday social, Mother's Day Sunday social in Brown Thomas with Seabody, the fantastic Helena, who is the person that invented Seabody skincare, which is beautiful. She did the facial that day. And then tonight is Tuesday. Tonight I'm doing 2 events tonight. One with MTU and the Marketing Association, and I'm up in the Montenotte for Coco Brown. And the Montenotte, I have to mention it, guys, if you haven't gone onto the Montenotte site yesterday, you must, because they have just launched something that I was privy to about 5 years ago, and it's the most beautiful tree houses and retreat section to the Montenotte in their lower grounds, which will be open from the 1st of August. It is going to be unbelievable. Go and check it out.
I know the Montenotte is lovely down the back. I guess I know back in the day there was the country club, but when they took that over and they've revamped everything, it's just a gorgeous hotel. It's so different to what it used to be like.
Well, Frankie that owns that is a true visionary, and I love listening to him, talking to him. Very clever man, and what he imagines is all now coming to light. So yeah, we're going to be very spoilt. All of this helps Cork. All of this helps bring people to our city. As does, we have to mention Cillian Murphy's win. I was actually watching Instagram this morning, the amount of people that put up memes saying, I'm not visiting Cork, they'll never shut up about it, blah. And although I've got my lovely British accent, I'm Cork through and through, and I'll be telling everyone I want.
Jason did my brother Jason O'Gorman, he did a really cool digital print for it already.
I don't know who Jason O'Gorman is. I actually don't know who Jason O'Gorman is. I don't know him as Jason O'Gorman, the artist. Yeah, Jog, because I bought so much of his art during COVID actually, and then it wasn't until recently that you told me, that was just before Christmas, that you told me that he was your brother. But I loved that piece that he did.
Yeah, it's cool.
The pub with the Murphy's sign behind him. It was brilliant.
It's good because we actually have the deep dive as well tonight for the club. So I'm deliriously tired. I've had 3 hours sleep. I forget when my child won't sleep what it was like to have a newborn. I don't know how people do it. I don't know how I did it because I'm dead today. But I'll be on the deep dive tonight. It's there's Judy Russell and Mind, is it Mindful Management?
It is lovely,
Mindful
lovely.
Finance, Mindful Finance. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I won't be there. I'll be watching it back. Trina from Early Lewis Insights will be leading it today. But that's what I have to get used to now, because now that I'm stepping back from the face of the club, I will always be the founder, but I will just won't be prominent anymore. In fact, on Friday, somebody asked me, what do I want the next 5 years? And I obviously said I'd love TSB to be our main sponsor. And then the second thing is I'd love to just walk into the head office of the club to see how things are going on. Yeah, I can't wait for that to happen. And that's what we're striving towards.
Yeah, and it will. We just have to plan it. That's it. We just need to have the vision and then make the plan and action the plan. That's
Absolutely.
Visions are great, but we have to actually do the work, and build it. My week was just work. I'm in two big projects at the moment. There's run-ons, as that always happens in project management, because you get halfway through a project and you hit a problem. So I've been doing sorting out change management requests this week to extend budgets and projects, because the system was built in a different way than anybody ever assumed it should be built, because the original contractors didn't do their job the way they were meant to do it. But so yeah, I'm deep down a rabbit hole of two projects at the moment that I'm kind of hoping to see the light at the end of the tunnel kind of by May, I think. Yeah, so
Actually, I've got something to tell you. A bit of self-promotion here, I suppose, but I actually, one thing I've been talking about a lot this week is personal brand, which I think is really important. And within that talk, I did another podcast with 3B1, the Business and Marketing Scoop, with Mark, who I've worked with for years, and that's out this week. And I think it would be really interesting for people if they don't really understand personal brand and how it fits into the business. And then the other thing is we have done an agreement with in the club with Image Business Club.
Mm-hmm.
So I will be announced today as the new female founder coach for the Image Business Club on a national scale. So I'm very, very proud of myself and very excited about that. But it also means that when someone joins the club, they can avail to join the Image Club as well for a massive discount. So
that's brilliant.
It's a really beautiful collaboration. I'm very proud. It's taken a long time. And so I'm quite, happy about that today. So, I forgot actually. I just remembered.
So it's finally been announced. Okay.
It's finally been announced. I've known for a while that it was happening, but it's going out on today, actually. It's going out today. So by the time this goes out, it will be up and advertised.
So again, building Shan Moran's personal brand, as opposed to what you've been doing for the last number of years, been building your business brands. So now you're starting to kind of work into more in your own brand.
Absolutely, because I want to have a bit more fun.
Yeah, because you can be a lot more flexible and authentic within your personal brand, can't you? I think that's where that line blurs as well, because we were talking last week about like being strategic and only showing certain things and, showing the positives as opposed to the negatives. But when it comes to personal brand, you can be that way more authentic, because it is you. So it has to be you, all of you.
Yeah, and I'm honestly now a true believer that if you're either your business, you, whatever, especially when you are the business, if it's not authentic, you get sniffed out. So I'm a great believer that it should all be authentic. Otherwise, you're probably in the wrong business, because unless it's your passion and that shines through, you're never going to be 100% happy.
I always struggle with that, because obviously I'm Monarch Business Solutions. So I'm trying to build a business and its own brand and its own name. But essentially, I'm a freelancer. We had this conversation as well last week, when people call themselves agencies or businesses versus freelancer. And I always say, like, I'm a consultant, but I'm a freelancer. I'm on my own. It's just me.
What though is your end goal to have a team?
And that's one thing I'm struggling with at the moment, because I go back and forth on it an awful lot, because I've had teams before, I've managed teams before, I've managed big enough teams, and it's just and paying them with somebody else's budget, obviously, so the risk is a lot less. But when you have a team yourself, it's just finding those like A players, you know, and people, because they're representing you and it's your name and it's all going out into the world as yours with other people doing it. I struggle with, I think right now, while my little girl is still quite small, I want to remain freelance for a while. I may branch out into like the associate model. I think that's where I go first before I go and hire employees directly, just because it's less risk for me, and it's, you don't have to provide long-term contracts for them and have that inflow of business, you know, constantly to, you know.
You are the business anyway, whether you like it or not. You are Mono. Do you know what I mean? Everybody knows that it's you. So they do completely overcross. It is your personal brand that is driving that business forward. It's not, you know, a brand that, because you are that business. So it is 100% personal brand, and the leverage, to be able to leverage your personal brand for your business is super, super important. You know, although I don't on my personal, say, marketing pages, I don't talk loads about my businesses. They all feed into each other. They're all part of each other. There is crossover without a doubt. Everything I do is about women, whether it be about movement or business or confidence, coaching, whatever it is, it really is directed towards women. So that personal brand, it's not about, you know, like I had this conversation with somebody else last week. I don't see my personal brand as, oh, on my page, I try on clothes. Business page, I talk about business. That's not it. It's all the same.
Yeah. They all feed off each other. Yeah.
They all feed off each other. And that's really important. Don't try and be something that you're not. Don't overthink it. Title schmeichel. The amount of times I've employed people and they're like, oh, well, what's the title? I'm like, well, what do you want to be called?
I'm like that. I'm like, I don't care. Call me the mail lady if you're just going to pay me my good enough salary. You know what I mean? And I like my job. I don't care what I'm called. I'm never really.
People are driven by different things, and you know, I find that what's my title bit always very interesting. It can be driven a lot by ego, so I always pass it back to the person, and I always say, well, what do you want to be called? Because I actually don't care what you're called.
I think from a CV perspective, it can make a difference, because depending on what it's called when it's going out into the world, if you're trying to get a new job, you want that nice heavy title because that might get you the interview. Because we were literally discussing this last night, and a lot of multinationals now, they're throwing out directorships left, right, and centre. Like, I have a lot of friends in finance across different multinationals that I've worked in previously. And it's just like, you're a director, everyone's a director today. And it's kind of starting to dilute that phrase now within those big multinationals, because they're just a dime a dozen at this stage. I know you have to work hard to get to that level.
I've never, ever looked at a title when I've employed someone. What I have looked at is what they did in the organisation.
Yeah.
And if you are someone that just looks at title, you're a moron. Sorry.
No, I have seen this, you know, genuinely. I've hired a few people in my time, and I've seen it in just across recruitment agencies, and
that's just ridiculously lazy.
Big off the title more than, you know, because when you dig into it, then when I'd be interviewing them, I'd always kind of question into the work and what would you do in this scenario, and what, because that's, I think you can say anything and you can learn anything off, but I'll always challenge something. If this was to happen, how would you, you know, respond to it, or what would you do? Because people thinking on their feet, you can really get a feel for what they're going to be like in a job.
That lies about capability.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? They'll put in what they were responsible for. Then when you ask them for examples, I just would never read a title, because I know how ridiculous titles are. It would sadden me that other people don't know that. So I'm saying this as a statement. It's a bold statement, but don't take someone on just because they've got a title or they had a title from someone else, because like me, I don't care about titles.
They're made up, like most of them made up.
Everyone lies. I remember a bloke leaving me years ago. I'm going back like 15, 20 years ago, and he left. And he was a duty manager. He worked under me, and I saw his LinkedIn, and it says like operations director or something. And I was just like, you're not, you bloody liar. But do you know what? Do I care? No, because if the next person that he goes and works for doesn't interview him properly and doesn't work that out for themselves, then they deserve him.
Oh, I know. I've seen bad hires and how disastrous they will go. I've always been really good for getting a sense of a person when I'm in a room with them. And I've had people above me hire despite my advice.
I'm rubbish.
Yeah.
I'll put my hand up. I'm rubbish because I like everyone. So I really have to be very, very astute about how the process goes. And so if I need someone to do a specific job, I will give them a project for that job before I meet them for a second interview, because I always like people. And also as well, we're living in an area where sometimes when you give people a small project for that second part of that interview, some people just won't do it because they're lazy and they're like, well, why should I do that for them? I don't know. Somebody said to me once, like, well, I don't know if I'm going to get the job. Why would I bother? And I said, well, don't bother, because if that's your attitude before the interview, I really could never work with you anyway.
Yeah, because I know there's a lot of like, oh, I'm afraid to show my work in case they steal it. And now in finance, there wouldn't be projects, like you wouldn't give somebody a project hire an accountant like that. But there's ways you can ask.
About what part of the project that you want to do. So for instance, if you wanted someone to, I don't know, price someone up, or, how many people do you think you would need to do this task? It's a small task. You're not asking them, like I've recently been looking for a content creator, for instance. I gave them a load of content. I said, I want you to do something with this. Now, this content has all been used. So you're not doing me a favor by making this content up. It's all been used, but I want to see what you would do with it.
Make a different spin on it. I even just love to see people's approaches. It's like, how would you go about doing it? What would your first steps be? What would your approach be?
Let them do it. Don't ask them in an interview scenario. Go off and see if they will do it for you. Because if they have the attitude of, oh God, have I got to do this just for an interview? You don't want to work with people like that.
Oh, you can't even hire accountants anymore. Like there's no accountants coming up the pipeline anymore. So hard to hire accountants nowadays, because like I remember a couple of years back, CPA sending out messages kind of going like, the pipeline is low here, there's nobody coming in, because finance is just renowned for like such bad hard hours and people burning out. That finances, there's a lot of work to be done there. A lot of, I think, opportunity for motivation, innovation, AI, to like get rid of all the good work and just add value work to it. That's where I kind of think I'd like to be. We need to get into these laws because we're going to be here for half an hour.
But I could chat all day.
Okay.
Let's go.
We will go through the first. We'll be quick enough with these anyway, because I think a lot of it, these are the last two marketing ones as well. So we need to talk about that.
Okay.
And we will be moving on to the philosophy part of the book. And I love philosophy and kind of that like thought leadership stuff behind business. I just think it's so fascinating. So law 17, let them try and they will buy. So the summary of this law is, getting your product into customers' hands remains an incredibly powerful tool for salespeople, marketers and brands. Next time you're trying to make someone love something and pay a good price for it, don't just tell them how great it is. Use the power of the endowment effect and take a page out of Apple's book. Let them touch it, play with it, test it, drive it, and try it out. If you do, like my niece story he refers to, they might just not want to give it back. Through the lens of ownership, the ordinary becomes the extraordinary.
Couldn't agree more. Love Apple's philosophy of letting people go into their stores, hold it in your hand, play with it, see how it works. It feels like it's yours. It feels good. Obviously, it's a high-end proposition. So when it is in your hand, and I think something they do very well is there's such small changes when they bring out a new release, but they feel different. And that's always really, really important. And I think when he was referencing,
is it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He's all about the feels, how things make me feel. That's why I'm an Apple junkie, because everything that I use is easy, makes me feel intelligent because it's so easy to use. So that's a really good feeling. Yeah, they're super smart.
I think a lot of phone companies have adopted that approach now, though, because everything is laid out. Everything has the kind of white space around it, and that space in the middle of the shop, so it looks like it's important. It's not all stocked away in boxes on the shelves. surrounded by other accessories. They're really presented on a pedestal
Yes.
in the middle of the shop.
Yeah,
It looks
no,
nice.
it's superb. So he used an example of labeling two gifts, one to his nephew, one to his niece, labeled them wrong. So his niece opened Buzz Lightyear. He then went, "Oh God, that's not for you." The boy's going to open Elsa, tried to take it from her, and she was like, "No, it's mine." I completely get it. And actually, he was so worried that the boy then would open Elsa, but because it was his and it was a gift and it was in his hands, he was just as joyous to receive that gift. Good kids, by the way. Good
Yeah.
kids. Like, just accept the gift, get on.
But I think and that's like we were talking, like that's the technology end and how they're adopting it. But I also think in the online clothing situation, when I order something online and it's in my house and I've tried it on, versus if I tried something on in a physical shop, I've already ordered it, it's in my house. The effort for me to return it, I will keep something much faster than I would. If I only thought it was okay on me in the shop, I'd be like, no, I'm not going to buy it. But if I bought the exact same product, I've ordered it, it's online, it's in my house, and I'm looking at it in my mirror and it's okay, I'm much more likely to keep it, because what happens in that situation is the barrier to return it and the barrier to not buy it is greater because I have to go and physically return it.
That's also, though, is on expectation. And and I'm not body shaming anybody here, right? But you live in a size body is two-dimensional. All right. So when you make clothes up to about size 14 to 16, they're made with two pieces of cloth that are stitched together. Now, I only know this because I used to work as a fitting model back a long time ago. So they're made with two pieces of material. So when you hang something up in a two-dimensional shape, it looks very similar to how it looks on the body.
Mm-hmm.
However, when you're larger size, it's made in a three-dimensional shape. So it's made with 6 pieces. So the pattern is 6 pieces rather than 2. So my frustration with online shopping as a larger lady is it doesn't always look, because it won't look straight on a hanger.
Yeah, I know, because of the dimensions, you know what you mean. You need to see it on a mannequin, really, kind of, don't you?
100%, and the proper size mannequin. So I do struggle with online shopping. However, I completely agree with you with the purchase piece. And actually, I think a really good example of this is beauticians. So beauticians are trained to be beauticians. They're not trained to sell product, and they're quite awkward around selling product. However, and I used to explain this to my girls in my beauty salon all the time, if somebody has booked a Yonka facial, we used to do three different skincare ranges. We used to do Dermalogica, Shiseido, and Yonka. If somebody's booked a Yonka facial, it's because they like the product.
Yeah. 100%.
They haven't booked it because they like Dermalogica. They've booked it because they like Yonka. So they are already 50% sold. They have an understanding of the product, the benefits it has to their skin. The only thing we need to explain to them is that home care is really important, and as important as, coming and having a facial. But actually, you'd have less facials every year if you did your home care. But they'd always feel very uncomfortable. They think it was called sales, and that was my thing. I never thought it was sales when I worked in beauty. I was just like, if you don't leave with this, you must be mad, because I've always looked after my skin. So I think, remember that when someone walks into if it's a restaurant, they've chosen your restaurant. They've chosen it for a reason. It could be how you make them feel. It could be the food that you serve. Hopefully it's both. And so the upsell on that is much easier.
If they're halfway there.
Yeah, if you've booked your hotel, you've chosen that hotel. So to get them to eat and to have breakfast there should be easier.
Yeah, they're a really warm, they're an extremely warm lead, because they're already there looking to experience part of what you're selling. And it's the same from service industry as well, I think. Was kind of more in my line. It's the free consultation, like the initial free consultations, the discovery calls. I see people doing free master classes and that. That's giving your client, your potential client, a chance to experience you and your mind and how you are to work with. for, a short period of time, it's like the first one is free, that kind of a thing. Like the first idea is free, the first recommendation is free. And I always find because there is a mindset going around now, discovery call you shouldn't give. And I don't like the word discovery call. To me, it's just a consultation. You know what I mean? Your first consultation where you have a conversation with somebody. But don't give anything away for free, lock everything down. But I do think if you bring somebody into your world and you show them how you can help them in your business without obviously over serving, but there are ways to do this, that it's showing them like, oh my God, if she can give me this insight in 20 minutes, what's she going to be like if she's actually working for me?
Depends on how long you've been doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing a discovery call.
No, well, I just do consultations.
Yeah, I don't really do a consultation. People know if they want to work with me because I give so much information through my socials.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely do I have to meet somebody. Most of the time, if I'm meeting somebody, it's more for me to help design the project for them.
Yeah.
They pay for that time because I'm designing the project for them. I really think it depends on where you're at with your business. And if you've been doing it, like, look, I don't do that anymore because I've been doing it for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
100%. 5 years ago, I was doing it. I was doing it for 20.
I still think, and maybe it is different for the type of business that you're in or whatever, but
I'm in a different type of business. It's very social media led.
So they're seeing you, like if they want to see you and your social, there's like my type of business is very different in that way. It's problem solving, getting like I can't come on and talk about the solves that I've done in businesses because I've had to sign so many bloody NDAs, you know what I mean? And it's personal information.
I mean, too, but listen, I can tell you now, there's other people I can mention that wouldn't be doing it either.
Mm-hmm.
They sign NDAs every day of the week, and actually on their socials, you'll never know who they work with.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll only know probably 40% of the people that I work with because they ask me to share it in certain ways or forms. Just me.
I think you have to build up to that though, and that is building 100%. Your personal brand will get you there.
Then the answer to the question is there's no rule.
I think the rule is knowing where you are in business, because like I have mentors who've been doing what I'm doing 30 years and they will still always have that initial meet. Like I had a meet up with a guy there a couple of weeks ago. Like I spent about an hour and a half listening to him about all his problems in his business and what he needed. And I didn't sit there and tell him how I was going to do it, but I told him, yes, these are things I can do, and this is what the process will look like. And
the problem is
that is a very large project then. But that would never have happened.
But other people's personalities, like I'm a giver. I would give them flipping everything. So it doesn't work for me. I'm saying there's no rule, and that's my opinion. You're saying there is a rule, and that's your opinion. And both are completely justified. I don't think there is a rule. And if you don't understand this, then you need to book in with one of us to have a chat. Because there isn't, like what I don't like is, I'm not saying they don't have all the information before I start working with them, but that doesn't have to be an hour conversation over a Zoom call. It really isn't.
Well, I suppose your portfolio essentially is available online for everyone to see, you know what I mean, from a social media perspective, because you can just point to all the social media channels that you run and how you've grown them. My portfolio is much more locked down and in the back end. I can refer them to people to have conversations, and that's typically how my work will come to me. Is somebody has a conversation with somebody and mentions my name and says, this is the person that you need. But I will always have to have that initial call. Plus, for me, how do you know if you want to work with somebody and if it's the right fit for you without having that initial conversation and proper, like get together? How do you know? No, but how do you know you want to work with them? Because I've had people that I'm like, I know I won't go near with a bird phone.
Yeah, no, I'd know straight away. I know it, but my time is precious, so I can't give that time for free anymore. Not at 52, not after working for myself for over 2 decades, not after being in business for 36 years. I don't have any free time left anymore.
Yeah. No, well, I suppose it's fair. And then if they want to work with you still, then they still just have to book in and work with you, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it works. For me, that's what I'm saying. That's my rule. Anyway,
next law, quickly. Will we do it?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. So the last law in the marketing pillar is fight for the first 5 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
If you could give 100 more client case studies that prove those first 5 seconds are do or die for any great story. If you want your story to be heard, you must aggressively, passionately, and provocatively design those first 5 seconds to be thumb-stoppingly compelling, annoying, magnetic, or emotionally engaging. Drop the warm introduction, the pleasantries, and the musical B-roll footage, and urgently get to the most compelling promise, point, or provocation that you can. No matter the medium, you must earn the right to the attention you're seeking within those first 5 seconds. Attention might just be the most generous gift that anyone can give you. I 100,000,000% agree with this because I have zero patience for people who just ramble and don't get straight to the bloody point. I am the person on TikTok with my finger on the fast forward button and I watch everything ×2 until they get to the point and then I slow down.
So what do you think my theory on this is?
I don't know. I think do you disagree?
No, but what do I preach?
Get people in, like you have to catch people in because
Yeah.
they'll just scroll because.
So I've never introduced myself, sold myself, pitched myself.
Oh yeah, pitching over participation over pitching.
Because my true belief is participation over pitching.
Yeah.
So I get it. I understand it. I don't stand in rooms. I do stand in rooms, but I hate those rooms that ask me, can you introduce yourself in 2 lines? Like, I just can't stand it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't show you. So I would rather spend 5 minutes listening to a load of other people and walk away from that conversation without even introducing myself. In fact, when I first joined Network Cork, I don't think I told anybody I owned Elite for 3 years. Not unless they asked me. I never told people, because for me, it's all about how you make people feel. And me just pitching my business is just it's just boring. It's as boring as you pitching your business to me or yourself and your personal brand. I get a feeling for people, and people will always forget what you said to them. They'll never forget how you make them feel. And so for me, I would take that 5 seconds and make someone feel good.
Yeah.
And that's all they need to know about me on their first introduction is I'm going to make you feel good about yourself.
It is adding value and feeling good as well. And that's what all people want. Like we're all bloody narcissists at the end of the day. It's like, well, and that's what you do walk away from. I sat around a table a couple of weeks ago on like a networking thing as well. And it was like everyone went around the table and stood up and introduced themselves. And like I'm pretty confident in those environments. I stood up in front of I'd say about 100 people at least anyways at some points in my life and given speeches and talked to crowds. But when all I'm doing for the 4 people in front of me is thinking about what I'm going to say, I'm not listening to them.
That's my big thing. And like I was actually saying this the other day, we're painting it. We're going to patent pitching over participation because I have never been to another network that does what we do in the club. And so I met a lovely lawyer last week and we're actually pinning it down because it's so special. Because when you go to exactly what you said, when you go to that room and 20 people are sat around and standing in a circle, if you're the last one, I swear to God, you haven't heard what anybody said. All you hear is la, 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 la.
Not a clue, because you're like, oh God, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? What I say? And then you're like, oh wait, I think I heard what she said was good. She's better than me. And we all do it, no matter how long you've been talking, no matter how long you've been networking. And like I've stood in big rooms and been able to talk no bother, but I'm still only thinking about what I have to say because it's like you don't want to make a fool of yourself either. They never worked for me either. It's always like the chat that I'll have at the coffee machine or on the way out the door, or the email address I might get off somebody to follow up and check something out. And that's how I get to know people then. Those cold networking events are not that nice. I'm doing more of them because I need to broaden my network, and networking is so important. I much prefer how it's done within the club in that it's just one of the girls that was there the other day, I was chatting to her afterwards. I was like, how did you get on? How did you find it? And she thought she loved the informalness of it, that you don't feel like you're And I love that as well. That's what I love about those events. You just don't feel like you're kind of under a microscope and you have to perform and put on that mask as much. And the more I go to each one, the more I can relax and I feel like I'm just walking into like a girl gang, you know what I mean? And it's nice and it's welcoming and it always is that way. But I felt like that for
Training.
my very first one.
Yeah, it's training. And actually, he gets it. Stephen Bartlett gets it. The last section of that law is attention might just be the most generous gift that you'll ever give to anyone. And that's what I really agree with. So yes, it is good to pin down how you introduce yourself, but really, is it that important? Not when you're looking to make long-term, like proper business relationships and that last for a long time.
And what I will say, especially if you're B2B, so if you're selling to other businesses and other entrepreneurs or founders, from my experience and what I've seen, and I work with lots of different founders at different stages of business, I would say, and this is a made up statistic, it's not real, but I don't know what the real terms of it are. I would say 80% of them are neurodivergent at some point. We all, and I have ADHD, but a lot of us have attention deficit because we hyper focus so well. And we actually change the status quo, don't go get jobs, we go and make something we love and want to do. And most entrepreneurs have that lack of, it's not lack of focus, it's focus only on what we're interested in. So if you don't catch us, we're gone. So if you're selling to businesses and you're not catching them in the first 5 seconds, they're gone. And it's something I'm not great at either from a social media perspective, and I need to get better at. But it's all the hooks, and you can Google what the hooks are, and there's loads of hooks. But I do think a lot of them have been diluted now, and I see some of them hooks, and I immediately scroll past because they're all the same. So I would say figure out what all your competitors are saying and what their compelling hooks are. Find it in a unique way of doing that. Because if you're saying the same things as them, it just becomes wallpaper, like he's mentioned in the other ones.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of businesses doing exactly the same things. You will, we're back to personal brand. You will always be your own USP. Mm-hmm. And, you have to think about why, what your why was and what the why was behind the why. But for me, everything is about a win-win for two parties. Yeah, so, true. And I get somebody rang me the other day, they wanted to organise an event. They weren't quite sure how to put it together. And she was like, I want to try and get a discount off the facility that we're trying to rent because it's very expensive. And I was like, well, why would they? What's the win for them? And she's like, oh, I'm not sure. And I said, well, you have to work that out because that's the first thing you're going to present. Can you do this for me? However, I'm going to bring this all to you.
Yeah.
And if there isn't a win for them, don't ask because it's insulting.
Yeah, no, 100%. You have to, even if you think it's an obvious reason and exposure, and you say, oh, you get exposure, you're like, sometimes that's not what people are looking for, and find what's real value, but call it out because they might not even realize it.
And exposure can work, but give them the stats.
Yeah, like what the real term of it is, because you get a lot of that, like people trying to get stuff for free because they give you exposure, but it's like, okay, so what are your engagement rates? Who's seeing your numbers? What is it? Yeah.
But it might be, like, look, I work with Brown Thomas once a month. I fill their restaurant 2 minutes before their front doors open. That part of the restaurant would not be full until 45 minutes or so after they'd opened. So that's the value proposition for them. Yeah. It's a no-brainer. So that's what you're always thinking of. How can I bring value to them so that to enable me to do what I want to do? And I get calls every day saying, Sian, could you help me promote this thing? And we'd love to invite you. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't, actually an example, somebody asked me something in wellness. It could be another Pilates class, and say, and they're like, would you help me promote it? But we'd love you to come for free. And I'm like, well, there's no win there for me. I'm a Pilates instructor.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I've got my own shit to sell. So it doesn't work for me.
I've got my own shit to sell. Oh, so true. We're all selling our own shit. We are like.
Yeah. So there has to be a win-win. So I always think of the value proposition, work that out in your head, and then you go and speak to somebody.
Yeah, no, 100%. And
Yeah.
the value proposition is really important. I think that's because that is what you're selling and why you're convincing people to buy your product, and literally doing exercises on it with ChatGPT at the moment for my stuff, because there's like three different like kind of niches that I work with. I'm not sure if I'm going to niche down or whatever, but it's like startup, scale up, and sell up. And for me, like the sell up niche is like when you're planning on selling, you kind of need to nearly be planning it 3 years in advance, because when
Or
you
at
do go
least.
for an acquisition, they're going to be going 3 years back into your financials, into your processes, and operationalizing everything. But if you can, within that like year or two before you even go for a sale or go to like private equity funding, you can clean up all your processes, tighten everything down, clean up your P&L, you get a higher multiple for your sales. So whatever you pay me, your times fixing that, as you know, what it, or whatever savings we make, your time fixing that on a
Yeah.
sale. So it's all that kind of work, you know what I mean? And that's like a value proposition for that end. But then I have to have a different value proposition for my scale ups and a different value proposition for my startups. And you need that for all the different types of services you are. And why would they buy from you or not somebody else?
Because I'm amazing.
But it's your skill stack. Everyone is individual in that sense. It's like what your skill stack is, because
Yeah.
there are a lot of Pilates teachers and a lot of Pilates business owners out there. But Shan Horan has all of these, are like you've all your gym stuff, you know, you've your beauty stuff, you work really well with women, you are like, and I'm only listening to stuff off the top of my head that I know. But your specific skill stack, my specific skill stack to do what I do, there's not many people out there that have my exact skills, and they hit the background in the different versions of industries that I've worked in. And that's all that comes into value proposition. But ChatGPT for that stuff is amazing. You need to know how to talk to it.
Absolutely. And if you don't, then don't worry about it. But yeah, so back to that law, give a little, which is all about the value that you're bringing to people. Just give a little.
First 5 seconds. Yeah.
Amazing.
Stop waffling on about who you are. They'll find out. They'll always
Absolutely.
find out.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Looking forward to next week's. And yeah, and then moving on to the next chapter.
Philosophy. Bye.
The music used for the opening and closing of this podcast is titled Pleasant Porridge by Kevin MacLeod. IncompeteTech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0. www.creativecommons.org/licenses/by/4.0.